In this UFO special, we reveal how alien disclosure may unfold, how the US President is likely to address the nation and the rest of the world, and how this news will affect every living human being on the planet. Firstly, the number one reason why our authorities are keeping humanity wrapped in marshmallows is for extraterrestrial technology, period. It has been claimed by many whistleblowers, retired military personnel, that from the 1940s, airmen were given instructions to take out UFOs. Allegedly, many human lives were lost. In fact, a lot more of ours were lost than theirs. Their families were never told the truth. Whilst technology is the number one reason, other reasons would include religion, possibility of panic, and the economy. Back in the early 1950s, the general public knew very little about space and astronomy. Our knowledge was mostly theories and telescope observations. Of course, I do not take away the fact that there are still a lot of theories floating around today, but NASA did not exist until 1958, and the first human being in space, Yuri Gagarin, did not occur until 1961. I think that full disclosure is probably unlikely. It is more likely that we will be told the existence of extraterrestrials and drip-fed information over a long period of time. Not only would this give humanity much more time to come to terms with the news, it is also much less likely to have a substantial effect on the economy. Life would have to go on. People would still need to go to work, pay bills and put food on the table. We certainly would not have access to ET hardware for a very long time, and drip-fed little by little even then. And this is of course assuming ETs wish to share. The only other option would be warfare, which is certainly best avoided. If any humans have the technology, it would of course be authorities only. At least to start with, our economy must continue. You cannot just remove industries like oil overnight and expect everything to be okay the next day. How humans would react to the news would depend on what we are told. As I've already mentioned, I think we would just have intelligent extraterrestrial life confirmation at first, and then, in terms of the specifics, very little else except reassurance and comforting words. If we were told more, and if the claims were that some or even all extraterrestrials were hostile towards us, of course the way we would digest the news would be a lot worse, and that is why I believe it would be relatively short and sweet. In fact, the evidence collected by many ufologists, some who have studied the subject for many decades, seems to suggest that there are friendly, neutral and hostile extraterrestrial races out there, and it seems that in the short time that human beings have existed, it probably has always been that way. What would be the reason why authorities may choose to tell us when they have allegedly held back so much, if not everything, from us in the past? Here are some possible reasons why they might decide now is the time. Increasing pressure from extraterrestrials. If the alleged early 1950s meeting between Eisenhower and ETs took place, and ET's existence being kept secret was discussed, then it is probable that a time period of secrecy was agreed. Often, it seems a period of 25 years is set. If true, this period of time would have run out first in the late 1970s, then again in the early 2000s, and an agreement would have had to have been reached to extend the time period each time. Perhaps the ETs will disagree to another time extension, or perhaps the ETs are dissatisfied with authorities in some shape or form. For example, the Earth's environmental condition and the refusal to disarm nuclear weapons. We who elect presidents or prime ministers may be in a stronger position to demand we look after the environment better if ETs inform us that they will give us cleaner technologies, or if they warn us that human being existence may end if we don't do something that ETs are telling our authorities must be done. UFO reports dramatically increase in number. What would happen if UFO reports suddenly increased 5 to 10-fold? If many more people witnessed UFOs and took video on their cell phones, it would surely make a huge difference. Whilst a single photo or video movie by one person does not hold much weight on its own, I think it would be a different story if 3, 6 or 18 people all recorded the same UFO at the same time, but from multiple angles. These photos or videos can be much better analysed by skilled professionals, and it is much harder to Photoshop or fake in some way. What happens if something on this same scale happens in Portugal one week, then New York the next, then weekly over London, Sydney and Berlin? All this video footage from multiple angles and all those witnesses would be hard for most to ignore, and the media would be much more likely to report this seriously. And the more people who talk about it, together with serious media coverage, then witnesses would be again more likely to speak about it because of the risk of ridicule being reduced. If this event ever played out, then it would be a gradual increase of proof over a period of time with much more regular media coverage, which in turn would place an increased demand for an official response from authorities. A single mass UFO sighting, where thousands witness a UFO, would be impossible to ignore. I don't so much mean a situation like the Phoenix Lights in the late 90s, though today, with much more and higher definition filming, it could be enough, but more a huge UFO, perhaps lit up like a Christmas tree, hovering over a major televised event. For example, the opening ceremony of the Olympics or World Cup finals, where not only would there be countless footage from cell phones, but professional TV footage by trained camera operators with tripods and professional lenses. It would be probable that if the craft simply hovered over an open stadium with tens of thousands of people inside, a security alert would take place, and likely an evacuation of the stadium. The millions of people who would view this at home or in pubs and bars around the globe would mean that this would be, as said, impossible to ignore. Authorities wish to patent the technology before someone else does. The US, for example, might be concerned about other countries such as Russia or China acquiring extraterrestrial craft or other technologies, back-engineering it, which means working out how it works, duplicating it, then patenting the technology, thus preventing the US from being able to profit financially from it. Depending on what that technology is, for example, it could be an energy source that takes the place of oil, and of course, this would be worth an unimaginable amount of money. In order to patent something, it can't be a secret, because you could never sue someone in court for what does not officially exist. So there could be some weight to this argument. A person successfully gets hold of extraterrestrial technology or finds a downed UFO and live streams it. These days, the average guy on the street via the internet is able to reach millions of people, especially if he or she has a good story to tell, and better than that, some proof. Whilst it seems unlikely, if a person acquired proof of extraterrestrial technology and it was able to go some way in terms of demonstrating it, it could be enough to force authorities' hands. However, the technology would likely need to be authenticated by laboratories or some other means to prove the film's illegibility. It is also unlikely UFO wreckage would be left alone for long, considering the value authorities are said to place on it. A person of extreme importance, like a former US president, decides to speak out. If a former president or prime minister, person of royalty, some other highly respected person, such as the head of the CIA, or governmental leader from another country, decided to speak out about UFOs and extraterrestrial life, and especially if they went into great detail, could well be enough to tip the scales. A person declaring this information, whether retired or not, would clearly need to be in good and sound mental health, and be able to put forward a good strong case, and their reason for coming forward at this particular time, with the information they possess, and why they have decided to break their oath if they have one. This final possibility does cover a wide range of people, but it is their alleged knowledge, position of power they hold, or once held, and their need to know that is important here. What would our reaction be, for example, if a former US president made a deathbed confession? If someone of importance did come forward, authorities would be forced by the general public and media to seriously elaborate on such claims. Having taken everything into account, next we look at how extraterrestrial disclosure might unfold and how it is likely to affect us as human beings on the Earth. We are going to state that a mass UFO sighting takes place over the western side of the US. A UFO, the size of an aircraft carrier, flies eastwards from the Pacific Ocean directly over Los Angeles, California, and continues eastwards over Palm Springs, Blythe, and then over Phoenix, Arizona, and continues into New Mexico, where it is spotted at Silver City and Hatch, travelling in the direction of Hollow Man Air Force Base. So many thousands upon thousands of witnesses spot this massive craft, and many of those film it with their cell phones. It is all over the news, radio, and social media sites. Some of the clearest UFO footage goes viral within hours. It is impossible to slide this one under the carpet. The following is a speculative view of what a current elected US president may say in such a scenario. Again, I'm going to go with what I believe to be the most likely here. The US authorities confirming the existence of extraterrestrial life on its own is enough of a bombshell for some, and ignoring the very likely words of comfort and the great country that America is and the strength of the American people, I don't think it is likely that we will be told a lot more in terms of specifics on the day of official disclosure. When President Reagan addressed the country in January 1986, just after the accidental destruction of NASA Space Shuttle Challenger, which had the first schoolteacher on board, many tens of thousands of American children and young people were very upset, shocked and tearful, as they had been watching the launch live on TV in their classrooms. And at that time, the shuttle was still quite new, and it carried America's dreams of easy and regular access to space. In the speech, the President spent a few short minutes addressing schoolchildren directly, as it did in a sense directly affect them. On this premise, I feel it would be reasonable to assume that the President on Disclosure Day may directly address people of religious faith and offer some comforting and reassuring words. It is probable that the President would speak to the nation perhaps on a Friday late afternoon or early evening, giving most people the weekend to digest the news and to minimise the effect on the stock market, which is perhaps likely to be closed for a period of time after the President's speech. My fellow Americans and people around the world, recent evidence has come to light that our planet has been and currently is being visited by one or more intelligent extraterrestrial beings. A recent investigation run in collaboration with the Pentagon has discovered that the recent unidentified flying object, which was filmed and witnessed by many tens of thousands of people and which demonstrated a technology which is far above our own, did indeed peacefully fly above the states of California, Arizona, and New Mexico. I recently asked the Secretary of Defense for as much detail as possible on the event in question, and I can now confirm that this craft did indeed land, as some have speculated, at Hollow Man Air Force Base, and peaceful contact was established for a short period of time between personnel at the base, including the Air Force Base commander, and who we believe to be extraterrestrials. It must be said that we currently have no reason whatsoever to believe that we or our planet is in any kind of danger. In fact, we can say with high certainty that they have known of us for a very long time, perhaps many thousands of years, and have respected us as intelligent beings making our own way on this planet. I would like to take a moment to address all people of all faiths and religious denominations around the world. I know these words will probably be difficult, perhaps even impossible to accept at first, but faith and religion does not stop here. Religion has met many challenges in our history, such as when we learnt that the earth was not at the centre of the universe. Religion did not crumble. Instead, it grew, and as we unravel the universe's secrets, little by little, we see just how almighty and loving God truly is. Our faith, which is often at the heart of our existence, will continue to grow, now and for always. Today, humanity starts a new chapter, and whilst there will be much shock, disbelief, perhaps even fear, as we question our own morals, beliefs, and place in this mysterious universe, we as a species will go on with strength, dignity and pride, just as we always have, as we reach out further than we ever thought possible. The reason the President may state in the speech that direct contact with ETs was established with humans at a secure site, in this example, Holloman Air Force Base, is for a few important reasons. I do not think it is likely that the government would admit to all of the historical ET contact over so many decades, as they would have to admit to a massive cover-up, constant lies and deceit, and why would anyone trust them now or ever again? They would also be open to lawsuits, left, right and centre. They could just admit to the UFO incident that the President speaks of, but if they were to say they don't know who it belongs to, then it is likely to cause a lot of panic and never-ending speculation, and it would also show the authorities' vulnerabilities, as no one would be sure of the purpose or agenda. For these reasons, they would probably state that peaceful contact was made in the night in question, and that they never knew a lot more than that before this event took place. In other words, starting on a clean slate. After the President delivers a disclosure speech to the nation and beyond, I think he would probably take a few questions from the media, but I don't feel a lot more would be learnt from the answers than what was already contained in the speech. The next step is to give the information time to sink in, and it is probable that the President may give weekly, or at the very least, fortnightly speeches on the subject for the first few months, gradually giving people time to get used to this new reality and minimising any possible panic. Of course, other presidents and prime ministers around the world would do the same for the country that they lead, and most people should expect international news coverage from other countries as well. Another reason why it is important for regular updates from authorities is because of media, both in terms of professional media, such as TV, radio and newspapers, but probably even more so in terms of social media, where myth can spread so quickly. I believe that no matter how it's done, there will probably be some panic amongst some individuals. I think the panic would be overall much less today than 70 years ago. But remember, we are talking about human beings around the whole of the world. Current estimates suggest that up to 1 billion human beings, that is about 1 in every 7 to 8 people, live in shacks or shanty towns in third world countries. There are no computers, internet, TV or even electricity here. A lot of the world news they hear about is likely to be word of mouth, or put another way, Chinese whispers. As this poll shows, religion is very important to the vast majority, if not almost all people in these regions of the world, and they do represent a significant number of people on the earth, and it is difficult to guess how the news would be digested in these regions of the earth. This poll also highlights that religion is important to more than 2/3 of people in the US, and some who believe in extraterrestrial life also believe in God, and both beliefs live side by side. We've heard quite a lot about people who will be surprised or shocked by the news, so to keep everything balanced, there are also a lot of people who already firmly believe in intelligent extraterrestrial life. And these would include, as you might expect, most ufologists, book authors on the subject, some military personnel, some scientists, UFO and alien experiencers, and other people who are just simply known as believers and read UFO books out of their own choice, or at least those who have a passing interest in the subject. Once most people are aware of the disclosure news, what might happen in the coming weeks? Would the thousands of people who claim to have been abducted by, or who claim to have met extraterrestrials, suddenly be treated more seriously by a wider number of people? Would social media sites suddenly explode with claims of meetings or forced abduction with ETs? Would some people be able to sue the government or other body for ET abduction claims? Would insurance companies offer people insurance for possible unwanted or forced ET contact? Would the media, including TV news channels, daytime chat shows and newspapers, suddenly be interviewing a countless number of people who have made claims of meeting ETs, either willingly or otherwise? Would some parents believe their young child or infant is being taken by ETs if their child suddenly wakes up screaming in the middle of the night, where before disclosure they would probably simply put it down to a bad dream? Just to clarify, when I speak of some people panicking, I do not mean them jumping off of high-rise buildings or jumping in front of speeding locomotives. The number of people who initially panic is likely to be a lot less than 70 years ago, and the majority of those will come to terms with the news over a varying period of time. A strong argument for full disclosure, i.e. being told everything that authorities know, rather than being drip-fed the bits they want us to know, is that it would reduce much of the speculation in newspapers and social media sites. It is quite possible that the real truth, if we were told it, might not be as bad as what some are speculating it could be. And there is one more final point to make here. It is equally possible that human beings' life could improve and be much better in the longer term once the truth is out. Perhaps we would see improvements in healthcare. Technologies could become available that are not so destructive on our environment, and the many questions that humanity has had since the dawn of time have a chance to finally be answered. One thing is for certain, once done, it can never be undone. Humanity's blindfold would be removed forever, and we would finally be a part of whatever real reality is. We make content on all aspects of the paranormal and unexplained. If you enjoyed this content, please consider liking, subscribing, and take a look at my other content. Thanks for tuning in.